Millie's Diner, a cozy, old-fashioned spot, nestled quietly in a calm corner of Santa Monica, was more than just a workplace for Ava, a 30-year-old waitress with a warm smile and sharp wit. After 5 years of working there, she knew every regular's favorite dish and had mastered the delicate art of small talk. That evening, the diner hummed with its usual life. Older patrons gossiping, college students cramming over steaming cups of coffee, and the faint sound of a basketball game echoing from the small TV perched above the counter. Ava moved effortlessly, balancing plates while pouring coffee, her mind already drifting toward closing time. The bell above the door jingled. Ava glanced up, expecting a familiar face, but her heart skipped a beat. Jason Statham. Jason Statham, the action movie star, famous for his tough guy roles and intense screen presence. Clad simply in a black hoodie and jeans, he looked like he was trying to keep a low profile, yet his magnetic presence shifted the entire atmosphere of the diner. Whispers sparked, spreading like wildfire. Ava, steadying herself, approached his table with her signature friendly demeanor. "Good evening, sir. What can I get you tonight?" Jason looked up, his piercing gaze softening with a small smile. "Just a coffee. Black. And maybe a slice of apple pie if you've got it." "Coming right up," Ava replied, her voice calm despite the flutter in her chest. As she brought his order back, the regulars were already whispering among themselves. Most were starstruck, but not all shared the excitement. Greg, a loud regular known for his harsh opinions, sat glaring at Jason's table, his disapproval clear. Ava chose to ignore it, staying focused on Jason, serving his coffee and pie with polite smiles exchanged between them. But the calm? It didn't last. Greg stood up, his voice cutting through the diner chatter. "Aren't you that Hollywood guy, Jason Statham?" Jason looked up, his expression unreadable. "Yes, that's me." Greg crossed his arms, his voice dripping with sarcasm. "I've seen your movies. You play heroes on screen, but what do you really do for the people who need help?" The diner fell silent. Ava's heart pounded. She could see the discomfort on Jason's face, but he remained calm. "I try to give back where I can," he said quietly. "I support charities and causes that matter to me." Greg scoffed. "Sounds like a PR stunt." Ava couldn't stay silent. Summoning her courage, she stepped forward. "That's not fair," she said, her voice steady. "Jason Statham has done a lot for people. He's funded programs for underprivileged kids and supported veterans. You don't know what he's done behind the scenes." The room was silent. Greg's eyes narrowed. "You really believe that?" "Yes," Ava shot back. "Because actions speak louder than words. It's easy to criticize from the sidelines, but he's making a difference." Greg huffed and returned to his seat, but the damage was done. Ava's boss, Mr. Whitman, emerged from the back, his expression dark. "Ava," he said, motioning her over. She approached, her heart sinking. "What were you thinking?" he demanded in a low voice. "You don't argue with customers, especially not regulars like Greg." "I wasn't arguing," she protested. "I was standing up for someone who didn't deserve to be treated that way." Mr. Whitman shook his head. "This is a business, not a debate club. Greg and the regulars keep the place running. I can't afford to lose them." "I'm sorry, Ava. You're fired." The words hit like a punch to the gut. She couldn't believe it. "You're firing me for defending someone?" "It's not personal. I'll give you a few days to transition out." Ava woke up feeling numb. Millie's Diner had been her second home. Now it felt like her world was crumbling, but she had no choice. She had to collect her final paycheck. As she approached the diner, something unusual caught her eye. A sleek black SUV parked outside. She pushed open the door, her heart pounding. Inside, the diner was silent. All eyes were on Jason Statham, sitting calmly in a booth. "Ava," he said, standing as she entered. "Can we talk?" Ava's heart raced as she approached Jason, still processing the shock of seeing him back at the diner. "Why are you here?" she asked, her voice cautious. Jason smiled warmly. "I heard what happened after I left. I couldn't stand by and let you lose your job because of me." Mr. Whitman hovered nervously in the background, clearly unsure of how to handle a celebrity in his establishment. Jason turned to him. "You fired her for defending me," he said, his tone calm but firm. "That doesn't sit well with me." Whitman stammered. It's not like that. She disrupted the diner. Greg's a valued customer." Jason raised an eyebrow. "So, is decency not a valued trait here?" Whitman's face turned red, but he said nothing. Jason turned back to Ava. "I've been looking for someone like you, someone with integrity, courage, and the ability to speak up for what's right." Ava blinked. "I don't understand." He handed her a business card. "I run a foundation that helps underprivileged youth. We need someone who can connect with people, manage outreach programs, and inspire others. I think you'd be perfect for the role." Ava stared at the card, her eyes wide. "Me? Why?" Jason smiled. "Because real heroes don't need a spotlight. They act when no one's watching. You showed me that yesterday." The next week was a whirlwind. Ava left the diner behind and found herself in a sleek downtown office, working as the outreach coordinator for the Statham Foundation. She was nervous, but the team welcomed her with open arms. Jason himself was actively involved in many of the foundation's projects, and Ava quickly realized that everything she had defended him for was true. He wasn't just a celebrity endorsing a cause. He was genuinely committed to making a difference. One afternoon, while visiting a local community center, Jason pulled Ava aside. "You know, that day in the diner," he began, his voice softer, "I wasn't just there for a coffee. I was scouting places to support. Millie's Diner is in a struggling neighborhood, and I wanted to see if it was worth investing in." Ava's eyes widened. "Are you serious?" Jason nodded. "Sometimes the best investments aren't in big corporations. They're in people like you." A month later, Ava stood outside Millie's Diner, now under new ownership. Jason had purchased the diner, transformed it into a thriving community hub, and even rehired many of the staff, including some of Ava's old friends. Greg was there too, though quieter, more respectful. The confrontation had clearly humbled him. One afternoon, he approached Ava. "I was wrong about you," he admitted. "And about him. Thanks for setting me straight." Ava smiled gently. Everyone deserves a chance to grow. But the biggest surprise came later that evening. Jason gathered the entire team for an announcement. "Ava," he began, "you've done more than I could have imagined. You've inspired us all, and I want to give you something special." He handed her an envelope. Inside was a check, enough to pay off her student loans and even buy a small house. Tears welled up in Ava's eyes. "Jason, I can't accept this." Jason's smile was warm. "You earned it. This is just the beginning." Ava realized in that moment that standing up for what's right didn't just change the world, it changed her life too. Jason himself was actively involved in many of the foundation's projects, and Ava quickly realized that everything she had defended him for was true. He wasn't just a celebrity endorsing a cause. He was genuinely committed to making a difference. One afternoon, while visiting a local community center, Jason pulled Ava aside. "You know, that day in the diner," he began, his voice softer, "I wasn't just there for a coffee. I was scouting places to support. Millie's Diner is in a struggling neighborhood, and I wanted to see if it was worth investing in." Ava's eyes widened. "Are you serious?" Jason nodded. "Sometimes the best investments aren't in big corporations. They're in people like you." A month later, Ava stood outside Millie's Diner, now under new ownership. Jason had purchased the diner, transformed it into a thriving community hub, and even rehired many of the staff, including some of Ava's old friends. Greg was there too, though quieter, more respectful. The confrontation had clearly humbled him. One afternoon, he approached Ava. "I was wrong about you," he admitted. "And about him. Thanks for setting me straight." Ava smiled gently. Everyone deserves a chance to grow. But the biggest surprise came later that evening. Jason gathered the entire team for an announcement. "Ava," he began, "you've done more than I could have imagined. You've inspired us all, and I want to give you something special." He handed her an envelope. Inside was a check, enough to pay off her student loans and even buy a small house. Tears welled up in Ava's eyes. "Jason, I can't accept this." Jason's smile was warm. You earned it. This is just the beginning. Ava realized in that moment that standing up for what's right didn't just change the world, it changed her life too. However, doubts lingered in Ava's mind. Jason had been generous, but she couldn't shake the feeling that something deeper was at play. The next evening, her phone buzzed, an unknown number. She hesitated, then answered. Is this Ava Bennett? A deep voice asked. Yes, who is this? My name's Marcus. I need to talk to you about Jason Statham. Meet me at the old pier tonight. Alone. The line went dead. Ava's mind raced. Could she trust the stranger? That night, as the wind whipped around her on the deserted pier, a tall man in a dark coat emerged from the shadows. You came. Who are you? What do you know about Jason? Marcus handed her a folder. Look for yourself. Her heart pounded as she scanned the documents, financial records, property transfers, a list of names, including hers and Millie's diner. This can't be right. Jason's foundation isn't just about helping people. Marcus's voice was grim. It's a front. Jason uses desperate people to launder money. I was in your shoes once. Trusted him. The next morning, Ava confronted Jason with the folder. His expression darkened as he flipped through the documents. Where did you get these? Is it true? Jason's gaze was calm. Marcus twisted the truth. Yes, the foundation handles large sums, but we help people. Marcus? He's a con artist. Later that night, headlights flashed as a black SUV approached Ava and Marcus at the pier. Jason stepped out, flanked by his men. You shouldn't have crossed me, Marcus. A tense confrontation ended with Marcus arrested for fraud and Jason publicly clearing the foundation's name. As Ava watched the press conference days later, she knew her life, and her view of trust, would never be the same. Her mind raced as the haunting words echoed in her head. This isn't over. The weight of the warning pressed heavily on Ava's chest. Determined to uncover the truth, she knew she had to dig deeper. With unwavering resolve, Ava returned to the office. She accessed Marcus's old workstation, using a password she remembered him entering only once before. As the computer unlocked, a wave of tension washed over her. Emails, encrypted files, and one message in particular stood out. It was flagged as urgent. Ava clicked on it, her heart pounding. The email was from an anonymous sender, warning Marcus to tie up any loose ends before the foundation's gala. Attached was a list of names, Jason's, hers, and others. She felt her breath catch. Marcus wasn't working alone. But before she could process it further, the sound of the door creaking open snapped her out of her thoughts. Ava whipped around, her eyes locking with one of Jason's security team members. His gaze hardened as he noticed the open computer. You shouldn't be here, he growled, stepping closer. Ava's instinct screamed, her pulse quickening. You're part of this, aren't you? She demanded, her voice steady despite the fear creeping in. The man smirked. Smart girl. Too bad, you didn't figure it out sooner. And in an instant, he lunged at her. But Ava was quicker. Grabbing a heavy paperweight from the desk, she swung it with all her might, knocking him back. The shock of the impact sent him stumbling. Without a second thought, she bolted for the door, adrenaline flooding her veins. She had to warn Jason. Meanwhile, Jason was at the gala, oblivious to the imminent danger lurking. Ava burst through the doors of the event, frantically scanning the crowd. There, she spotted him on stage, addressing the guests. Jason, she shouted, but the booming music swallowed her voice. Desperation fueled her as she fought her way through the crowd. Suddenly, the lights flickered, followed by a deafening bang that echoed through the hall. Panic exploded as chaos erupted around them. Ava's heart dropped when she saw him, Jason's security team member, holding a detonator. This foundation ends tonight, he screamed. Jason stepped forward, trying to reason with him. You don't have to do this. The man laughed bitterly, his eyes full of rage. You think you're a hero? People like you don't care about the little guys. With no time to waste, Ava acted quickly. She slipped behind the attacker, grabbing a serving tray. In one swift motion, she struck his hand, knocking the detonator free. Without hesitation, Jason tackled the man to the ground and security swarmed in, taking control of the situation. As the dust settled, Ava pieced together the shocking revelation. The security guard confessed Marcus had been a pawn. The true mastermind was an investor who had lost millions due to Jason's ethical business decisions. Jason turned to Ava, his eyes filled with gratitude. You trusted your instincts. You saved everyone. Ava smiled, the weight of the moment heavy on her shoulders. I guess some chances are worth taking. With the authorities escorting the defeated conspirator away, Ava and Jason stood in the aftermath, silent, yet overwhelmed by the staggering revelations they had just uncovered. The gala attendees were being escorted out, murmuring among themselves about the chaos they had just witnessed. Ava couldn't help but ask, her voice tinged with unease, "You said this wasn't over." "Jason, who's the investors?" Jason's face hardened as he looked her in the eyes. "Gerald Whitmore, a powerful financier. Years ago, I refused to cut corners and take advantage of smaller companies in a merger he proposed. He lost millions because of it. This is his revenge." Ava's breath caught in her throat. "Revenge?" she whispered, a shiver running down her spine. Jason nodded, his gaze darkening. "Whitmore's been trying to ruin my reputation ever since. I didn't realize just how far he'd go." Determined to confront the man behind it all, they made their way to Whitmore's penthouse tower. The building loomed tall, its sleek exterior shimmering under the night sky. As they entered the lobby, Jason's presence opened doors without question, his authority evident. Ava's palms were clammy with nervous tension, but she refused to back down. They reached the top floor, where Whitmore sat casually in a leather chair, overlooking the city skyline. He smiled, a cold, calculating smile that sent a chill down Ava's spine. Well, Jason Statham and the Waitress. How poetic," he said, his voice dripping with disdain. "We won't let you get away with this," Jason declared, his voice calm yet unwavering, every word carrying the weight of conviction. Whitmore's eyes flickered toward Ava, a cold smile playing on his lips. "You're quite the disruptor," he sneered. "But pawns rarely change the game." Ava stepped forward, her gaze locked on his. "Pawns can become queens, if you underestimate them," she retorted, her voice sharp and confident. Whitmore chuckled, dismissing her words. "Do you have any proof?" "Your word against mine doesn't mean anything." Jason didn't hesitate. He raised his phone, hitting play. The recording of Marcus's confession echoed through the room, each word from Marcus cutting through the air like a knife. Whitmore's expression faltered, his smugness fading as he processed the truth. Before he could react, the door swung open, and police officers stormed in, their presence summoned by Jason's silent signal. The walls that Whitmore had built around his arrogance crumbled instantly. His protests about his power and connections filled the room, but it was too late. His hands were cuffed, and his grip on control slipped away. "You've built your empire on lies," Jason said, his voice firm, unwavering. "It ends tonight." Ava watched in silence, a sense of closure settling over her as Whitmore, the mastermind behind it all, was escorted out of the room. The weight of the moment was heavy, but the relief was undeniable. The battle had been fought, and it was over. Back outside, the cool night air felt different. Jason turned to Ava, a look of gratitude in his eyes. "You've done more than anyone could have ever expected. I owe you everything." Ava smiled, her heart light despite the intensity of everything that had happened. "Sometimes, the right thing is worth the risk." Jason extended his hand toward her, his voice steady and sincere. "How would you like to work for the Foundation full-time?" Ava blinked in disbelief, her eyes widening. "Me? Really?" Jason nodded, his gaze unwavering. "You have the instincts, the drive, and the integrity we need. The future needs people like you." Tears welled to her eyes, and she blinked them away quickly. "I'd be honored," she whispered, the weight of the moment settling in. As they walked away, the city lights stretched before them, a dazzling sea of possibilities. It was a new chapter, one they were about to write together. The future was bright, and it was theirs to shape. If you enjoyed this story and want to hear more incredible tales of courage, justice, and unexpected twists, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to our channel. Hit the notification bell so you never miss an update. Your support helps us keep bringing you the most gripping stories. Join our community today.